Welcome to this edition of SAU Magazine, a weekly program featuring news, profiles, sports, commentary, interviews, and special events, all coming to you from the campus of Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.
Good morning and welcome to SAU Interview. I'm Melissa Cook, and together with my co-host Brandy Black, we'll be talking to Dr. Elba Birmingham-Pokorny. Dr. Pokorny is a Spanish professor here at SAU. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Pokorny.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation.
First, I wanted to ask you, how long have you been teaching at SAU?
I have been in this university since the fall of 1990, and I must add that the friendliness and the charm of this community makes one feel right at home.
Do you think that a foreign language is necessary in a liberal arts education?
Yes, a foreign language is extremely necessary in a liberal arts education. A knowledge of a foreign language makes an individual more complete. He or she has a more complete understanding of reality, or the reality that surrounds us, as well as the reality that surrounds other people. You're able to see the world and its reality from a larger window.
What about the fact that in the near future, the language requirement for this liberal arts education may be replaced with computer classes?
Interesting question. While computer literacy is extremely important in a technological society such as ours, the knowledge of a foreign language will give us that extra edge and will allow us to compete not only at a national level, but as well at an international level. If we want to continue being considered a superpower in the world, we must be able to compete not only from a technological perspective, but as well from a linguistic and cultural perspective. To do business in an effective manner, we must be able not only to understand the language of our prospective client, but as well his or her culture. In other words, we must understand how they think, how they feel, and what is important to them. Only then we will have the extra edge that the Japanese and European societies have over us.
Do you find it difficult to teach college-level students a language as opposed to grade school age?
No, not at all. I have never taught grade school age students. However, I will say that while the very young student has the ability to pick up the language a lot easier, the university student has maturity in his favor. I enjoy teaching very much, but I particularly enjoy the tremendous exchange of experience, stimulation, and knowledge that takes place at the university level. Every day I learn something new from my students. I find this extremely challenging and rewarding.
Does the Southern accent give your students difficulty in pronunciation?
Not at all. Personally, I'm prejudiced. I'm really charmed by the Southern accent. But I have to say that anybody, regardless of the area of the country he or she is coming from, is able to learn a foreign language. In addition, the Southern accent, because of its musicality, is a plus. Both of you, have studied Spanish and one of you French. You're already familiar with the fact that Romance languages are very musical languages. So your Southern accent is able to capture better that musicality.
Now I'm going to turn the tables a bit and talk about another envy of yours. I was fortunate enough to attend your conference last fall. What is your group now researching?
Well, this year the conference will be dedicated entirely to examining, in light of the upcoming commemoration of Columbus' arrival to the New World, the historical, cultural, economic, social, philosophical, linguistic, literary, and sociological impact of this event in both the life of the native population, the Amerindian, and the groups resulting from the fusion of the three cultures involved in the enterprise of the conquest, the Indo-Afro-European cultures, and in the future of the American and Latin American societies.
It's very interesting. I bet a lot of work goes into that.
A lot of work, yes.
Now, how do y'all decide where your meetings will take place?
Well, since I am the founder and coordinator of the conference, it is logical that the conference will take place in my home institution. In the remote future, the conference will take place in other institutions throughout the United States, and I already have received offers from institutions abroad, overseas, that are willing to co-sponsor the conference.
Do any of the members object coming to Magnolia?
Not at all. They really enjoy Magnolia. They like the people.
Well, that's wonderful. Where all do the members come from?
The participants to my conference come from various universities throughout the United States and abroad. In fact, this year we will have presenters coming from 4 different continents.
It's interesting.
I understand also that next session you're going to Jamaica. Is this pleasure or for work?
No, unfortunately. Fortunately or unfortunately, it is professional. I will be presenting a paper and chairing a panel at the 14th Annual Conference of the Caribbean Studies. So it's work.
With all the research that you do, when do you have time for your teaching, grading, and most importantly, family?
It is difficult. We have to sacrifice, to make sacrifices sometimes, and I sacrifice sleep. Fortunately, I'm one of those persons that does not require many hours of sleep. In addition, my family is extremely helpful, and we all believe in quality rather than in quantity. And I have to say that for me, this is not a new experience. I grew up in a home also with professional parents, and I never felt lonely or abandoned. In fact, every minute that we were together, we really took the best out of it. We gained a lot. There was always communication. There was always an interesting exchange taking place.
Well, I know that in Spanish-speaking cultures, family is very important. Where does your family live?
Well, yes, you're right when you mention that family is very important. Family is very important not only in Spanish-speaking countries, but also here in the United States, especially in the southern region of the United States. We have to return to our old family values. Family is the foundation of society, and family for me is extremely important. My family, unfortunately, lives all over the world. My mother, that is the only parent that I have alive, is an attorney, and she has her law practice in Panama City, Panama. Then I have an aunt that she spends time here in the United States and in Venezuela, and cousins that live all over the United States, Europe, and Latin America.
What type of law does your mother practice? That's interesting.
She practices criminal law and corporate law.
Mm-hmm. Where does your husband's family live?
His family resides in the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington, and California.
And I understand that they came from Russia?
Yes.
Does he speak Russian?
He speaks Russian, but with his family only.
Okay. Does your family have reunions?
Yes, we do have reunion, not as often as you do, because in here, most of you are 8. If you're not residing in Magnolia, you are 8 to 10 hours away. And when your family is thousands of miles away, it's a lot more difficult to have family reunions as often as you do. Our last family reunion that brought cousins coming from many countries all over the world was in 1987. And I feel that we are due for a new one.
So when you do have a reunion, where do you decide where you all will meet?
Well, in 1987, we had it in Panama because my maternal grandmother was still alive, and she is a very, very important figure in the family. So we had it in Panama. This year, or the next year, that I think that is when we are planning one, I really don't know. We will probably have to find a place that is accessible to everybody and not as expensive.
That's something to look for, the money. It can cost a bundle trying to fly across the world. Well, how many children do you have?
I like large families, but I only have one child. I'm also the product of family of one, so I only have one child. My husband does come from a large family, and he prefers small families.
Well, does he attend school here?
Yes, he's attending Southern Arkansas University.
Well, as a child, where did you go to grade school and then high school?
I went to grade school all over Latin America. First, I started kindergarten in Europe, in Italy, and then I attended school in Panama, Costa Rica, Brazil, Chile. But I finished high school in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Was that interesting for you to come from Panama and then go to an American high school?
No, I was used to the system because I attended Catholic school, private Catholic school, and the sisters, the great majority, they were either from England or from the United States. So I was used to the system. I have to confess, though, that the cold weather was extremely hard at the beginning. As you know, Minnesota is extremely, extremely cold.
Well, I don't know, but in Panama, if they have senior prom or things like that, but did you get to experience the real American life, go to senior prom? And
I was fortunate. I went not only to my senior prom, but I also attended 2 senior proms from 2 different schools.
Well, how many languages do you speak?
I speak 4 languages.
And what those
Fluently.
being?
I speak English, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese. And I speak some Arabic too, but I am losing it because I don't get a chance to practice.
And if you don't practice, you lose it,
You
right?
lose the language and you don't know that.
Well, your husband and your son, do they speak several languages like you?
My son speaks Spanish and also Italian. My husband is able to understand practically all conversation that takes place in Spanish, but doesn't speak the language that well. In fact, all of you speak more Spanish than he does. He understands, but he doesn't speak the language.
Well, have you always wanted to teach Spanish? Was that your first career choice, or how did you come about deciding to teach Spanish?
Well, I always wanted to teach. Since I was a child, I recall teaching other students, tutoring, not for money or anything like that. It was just a desire to teach. The only thing that has changed is the fact that originally I had planned to follow my mother's footsteps and to study law, and I did plan, to teach law at the university level, but there was always also a fascination with languages, and I guess that it was written that I had to teach languages, I had to teach literature.
If you could choose any age group, would you continue to teach the older students, or would you ever consider teaching young children?
I love children very, very much. I enjoy their curiosity, but I have to say that I prefer the exchange that takes place at the university level. Students are more informed, they are more mature, they have a mind of their own, and a real exchange of ideas takes place. And also, they're not the only ones that are learning. I'm learning also from them.
So, as we know, it takes daily use of the language to learn it completely. In your classes, and I know you use a lot of conversational skills and also teach us about the culture. So what do you consider the most important thing that your students learn from your class?
Aside from learning the structure of the language and in the process becoming familiar with their own English grammar, the student learns the culture, learns how to use the language. So that is important. You cannot learn the language in just the grammar and never apply it, because you will never learn the language, you will never communicate. You have to use the language, you have to practice.
So where did you get your undergraduate degree to teach Spanish?
Well, I received my bachelor degree in foreign languages and literature with a certificate in education from Portland State University, Portland, Oregon.
Where did you get your master's degree?
My master's degree is in Romance, Languages, and Literature from the University of Washington in Seattle, Washington.
And your doctorate?
Exactly from the same place.
In Seattle?
In Seattle.
Well, you lead such a fascinating life to me. You've been everywhere, lived everywhere. It seems like. Exactly what countries have you visited or lived in?
Well, I have lived in several countries. As I said, I have lived in Chile. I did reside in Italy when I was young, when I was a child. And then in 1989, the summer of 1989, I spent a full month in Italy. I was doing some postgraduate studies there. I have lived in Brazil, in Panama, Costa Rica, in Buenos Aires, Argentina, for a brief stay, in Jamaica also, and then here in the United States and the Pacific Northwest. Oh, and I have also I have traveled. I've spent like 2.5 weeks in Denmark.
I'm so
Spain.
Envious.
Don't be envious. You have traveled a lot too.
Not like you. Well, Dr. Pokorny, I'd like to thank you for being here today, and thank everyone out there for tuning in to this edition of SAU Interview. This is Brandy Black, speaking for Melissa Cook, hoping you will all join us next time. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
SAU Magazine is a production of broadcast journalism students in the Department of Theater and Mass Communication at Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.